because with COVID and everything going on, maybe we need to give a little space. I got my vaccinations. I think I'm good, but you never know. It's crazy times we're in.
We're all good at the Sigmon household, so.
Yep, likewise. Yep. So, but anyhow, you guys are coming off a 68-0 victory at Shelby Friday. That puts your record at 3-1 overall, 2-1 in the league. What are your early impressions or early thoughts or takeaways from that game?
Just that I thought our defense played exceptionally well. We were able to get several 3-and-outs, really be able to focus on getting better with our technique as far as whether it was a defensive lineman or linebacker. And then I thought our secondary played great. Brody gets the interception on the first drive that really sets us up for a short field. So I thought that was really the thing that stood out for me is just the flow of the game. And then our special teams, I thought, were exceptional, especially with our punt return. We had a couple of big punt returns back with Nate Boley and then also with Red Watson. Red also had the pick six on defense as well. So I thought that it was an excellent game for us as far as those two phases of the game. And then offensively, we were able to, really, do what we needed to do in order to be successful. So all in all, it was a good game for our kids to, focus on some of the little things of what they need to do to be successful, and continue to build momentum for the season.
You ran only 13 offensive plays, I believe, scored on 7 of those. But, if you could kind of go back to Red again real quick, and we'll move on to a couple other guys. But Red, it seems like he's having a really big year. That was, of course, a big game, scoring in 3 different ways. In Friday's game against Shelby, the pick six, the 41-yard touchdown pass from Kyle Stratton, and then the punt return. So how much of a lift, not only with his playmaking, but maybe his ability in the secondary as well, and just being a reliable guy back there, how big has he been for you guys?
He's really had an excellent season the entire year. It hasn't been equated to maybe necessarily touchdowns, but as far as watching him on film, we've always graded him high and thought he's done a remarkable job all year long. So I'm just proud for him and happy for him that he was able to get into the end zone the ways that he was able to get into 3 different ways like you alluded to. So it's nice to see that kind of vindication, I guess, for him. But he's been fantastic all year long for us, and that's started with 7-on-7s and camps and really all the summer activities that we've been doing. So credit to him and being able to build off that. We're hoping that we can go ahead and get more of the same type of play from him for the rest of the season.
You have a good mix of seniors, et cetera, but I mean, seniors, anytime you have those seniors who've been around and been through those battles, so to speak, I mean, how big is that? And because
and really being able to set himself up for a lot of success here, really from the second half of the season on. So it's fun to see.
how much of that, you have your opponent each week. How much of it is you guys and doing what you need to do in practice, taking care of those things you need to take care of to keep you in the spot and keep that, basically constant climb so you keep improving?
I think growth is relative, and it's relative to where you start out with, and it's relative to, obviously who you're playing. But when it comes to the things that our kids can control and our coaching staff can control, that's really the only thing that we can really focus on. If there's a football team that's, made full of All-Americans, we're going to play them and they're going to be a certain way the entire game. But how we respond and how we grow and how we challenge ourselves during the week is really, as an important way for us to gauge success as anything else. Because unfortunately, whether you win them all or lose them all, it really kind of starts with how you have, your growth and how you progress from there. There's been a couple of years where, we've really grown very, very well, and there's been other years where we've kind of plateaued and stayed the same here. The records might be the same. It's just the way that our kids have been able to reach their ceilings in the past, and maybe not necessarily always reach their ceilings, what could have, should have been. But that's, I think, is always huge. It's always about, relative to where you start and how you progress throughout the season.
We've highlighted Alec Pruitt here, but also on our First and 10 show with John and Cal, but that's because he's having a great season.
Mm-hmm.
He had another 100-yard game Friday with a couple more touchdowns. He's up to 533 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's averaging 10.1 yards a carry. I mean, how much has he elevated himself in the way he's performing this year?
It's a great point. We were actually watching film on him from last year, and to see him mature from his junior year, which was an excellent junior year in its own right, to the way that he's running and the confidence, but just the vision that he has on the field. He's really made, he hasn't grown. He's made gigantic strides to really be the football player he is now, and that's a credit to him. It's a credit to his family, and we're very proud of him, for that. But at the same token, to me, it's glaring, the improvement that he's made on top of an already good season.
Now you look at Shelby. Obviously, they're struggling this season, but Phil Fortier, who's been a longtime coach, different spots, especially longtime defensive coordinator at Shelby, he's been around it. He knows, he's been around. They've been successful at Shelby. They had the back-to-back semifinal runs when Lorenzo was there. But what do viewers need to know about a program that's maybe going through the things they are and things to kind of keep in mind? Because your first year, you guys were 1-8. Maybe not the same comparison, between you guys and what Shelby's going through this year, but still, what would you tell the viewers about what they need to keep in mind?
High school sports is in probably maybe the weirdest time it's ever been. You see schools that are not being able to field JV teams or freshman teams that they've traditionally been able to do. Even the great teams in our area can probably look back 10 years ago and say, we're missing 10 kids. We're missing 15 kids, depending on the size and who they are. So, it's a different time. It just is. And then, you throw in the pandemic and like a team like Orchard View, who's obviously our size, they're made a choice out of safety and legitimate concern that, hey, we need to go ahead and maybe focus just on our JV and kind of move on in a different direction for the next season. When I look at Shelby and what they're doing, they have 2 teams at the middle school. They have a JV team. They have a varsity team. And you really can tell that there is a sense of buy-in. There's a sense of, kids are interested. And I think that Phil's going to capitalize on that, in the very near future. I think also conference realignment helps as far as, what they're transitioning into as we are. So I think it's a mixed bag of a lot of different things. But, when I look at teams where you start talking about success, the wins and losses, they're always there. If you're going to win, people, are going to deem you successful. But every team, or excuse me, every game, there's a winner and a loser on Friday nights. And so when you look at the entirety of the season, what really makes a successful program, I think it's about buy-in. I think it's about, can you grow numbers? Can you, make football relevant? And I think right now at the initial stages, Phil's doing those things as far as, all the stuff that maybe doesn't necessarily equate to the wins and losses, but it builds a program. And that's something that I think is very commendable, and it's something that, you have to respect. He's also making sure that his every one of his, games on the schedule is being fulfilled. I think that's huge. That sends a tempo and that sends the right message to, their kids of saying, hey, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I think that, that message will be received here for them. So
switching gears to this week, 7 o'clock Friday at Fred Jackson Memorial Field, you guys take on North Muskegon. They're coming off a 37-0 victory over Hart. What were your impressions of them just, in your coaches meeting, seeing film of them, just seeing what they do? And what are your biggest concerns about them facing them Friday?
Well, they always give us a wrinkle, but I think, we're kind of getting to the point where we're used to that now. So I would have an expectation that there's going to be something that's a little bit different than what we're seeing on film, exclusively for us. I know that we kind of have our niche offense with the veer concepts that we run, and so you have to approach that differently to begin with. The other part of it is too is that they're definitely explosive. I see their young quarterback. No pun intended. His last name's Young, but you could tell that he's gotten better every week, and I expect him to be better this week. Explosive playmakers, and that they're going to be doing a lot of movement around to try to catch you off guard in some capacity, and they have the ability to make explosive plays. So all that's there, and we know that we have to be prepared for it, and we have to be fundamentally disciplined too. So that's really kind of what I see with North Muskegon. They're going to be a team that I think is going to be right in the hunt to be in the playoffs, and in our conference, I feel like if you're in the hunt to make a play in the playoffs, then you have a real opportunity to win a couple of games and really make a splash there.
History shows us that. We've seen that
absolutely
many times over. It's been a good series between North Muskegon and Whitehall over the years. I believe North Muskegon might hold like a 28-25 edge I was seeing, but I know in your tenure you've had some good success against them. But I mean, pretty good series you've had against them though. Has it been kind of back and forth? Would you say?
It has been. I always think that it's interesting with just the proximity. We talk about how close we are from Whitehall to Montague. But if you look at a traditional sense of what teams usually regionally travel, you could make that same argument, for almost every other team or rivalry in the state as far as the distance that, North Muskegon and Whitehall have to travel as well. So, it's a game that we're all very familiar with when it comes to, personnel and names and coaches and things like that. So and that's what makes it fun. So I don't expect anything less this year than compared to the years past.
I know football coaches do not like to look ahead. That's you're just not wired that way.
No.
But because it can get you in trouble.
Right.
But looking at your schedule coming up, you've got Ludington at home in a homecoming game next week, and that one was one that I think you guys picked up when Mason County Central decided they were going to be playing Montague, Oak Ridge, Whitehall, and then the week after that, I believe Hart's on the schedule. Do you know where that's at? And then the week after that is, of course, Montague, which obviously one at a time. But thoughts on just kind of the strangeness that's going on in the league in terms of who's playing, who's not, and especially right on the eve of that conference realignment that you're alluding to?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I think that things are going to get really interesting, or have the ability to get really interesting, just with what, the nature of just our school districts are when it comes to are we going to mask, are we not going to mask? And you've seen some teams that have had to pull out of games for COVID. Is that something that's a possibility moving into the future here in the next couple of weeks? It's not off the table, but at the same token, we can only play the teams that are in front of us. And so for right now, for us, we spend our meeting, focusing on North Muskegon. The biggest thing for us is when you start looking ahead, I think that's usually when you start to stumble. And if we really want the Montague-Whitehall game to have a ton of meaning, then we have to hold our end of the bargain. And obviously they do too, and they always seem to do that. We have to hold up our end of the bargain, and we have to make sure that we take every opponent serious, and it really starts with North Muskegon. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to approach it that way, and then what happens the following week and the following week after that, it's all relative, I guess. If we really wanted to look at, really far ahead, we could look at, some of the local teams like a Fruitport or a Spring Lake or an Allendale. We could go to Hudsonville Unity Christian. And we can really go down that rabbit hole, if we wanted to. I just don't know what we gain out of that, because every time I think that we should be starting to kind of look ahead that way, something goes sideways, whether it's, scheduling or something like that. The other team, us, doesn't really matter, but the possibilities of those things always happening seem to kind of look back in hindsight and being 2020 saying, well, we shouldn't have worried about that at all. So I always look back at the Escanaba thing. We see Escanaba, we see that our region from really us up gets really kind of sparse when it comes to Division 4. So in the back of my mind, we're always playing Escanaba week 9 or week 10, and that's only happened one time. So all things considered, those are just things that are in the future, and if they happen, they happen. But if they don't, well, let's be in control of the now.
I think if last year taught us anything, it should be that there's nothing promised. You just don't know what's around the corner, and that kind of speaks to your point. But
absolutely.
Any other observations then about the conference that you've seen so far? Any trends, anything that you've seen that's really jumped out at you?
You know, I think when it comes to our conference, you know, there's the standards, there's the things that have always happened, and then there's the other things that are always kind of a wild card. I mean, who knows what's going to happen and go around the corner here. You know, it seems like there were some favorites at the beginning of the season. You know, maybe one team's overrated, one team's underrated, and somewhere in between. But the goal for us and the goal for every team is to make sure that the end of the season's relevant. And I think that if we do our jobs right, you know, we can definitely make the end of our season at Whitehall relevant. So that's exciting.
Any other thoughts on happenings with your team or the way things are looking, or any other takeaways?
You know, just really excited about being able to play this week and really kind of really moving forward into like a normal school setting now. You know, it's been kind of crazy where it takes to about week 4 to actually get to what I would consider a normal routine. So now that we're there is really kind of where we can really embrace that. You know, hey, Monday through Friday school schedule and kind of working from there. And then homecoming's right around the corner too, which is crazy to think. You know, heck, I mean, we're in what, week 4 now?
Entering week 5.
Week 5, so
yeah.
I mean, we're finishing up week 4 and ending up week 5. I mean, you're only guaranteed 9 of these things, so it's a crazy how quickly things happen. So.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
I'll shake your hand
There
now.
you
I
go.
should have done it in the first place, but no, we'll be back here next Sunday recapping the North Muskegon game and looking ahead to Ludington, which will be, you know, as it is now, it's going to be a divisional opponent going forward, but we can look at that next week after you guys address North Muskegon. So
Absolutely.
Yep. Thanks for joining the show, everybody.